But before we head to Sherrill, we stop in Verona because, believe it or not, we didn't have enough room in last week's show to fit the world's smallest church. The Cross Island Chapel was built in 1989 and sits in the middle of a small pond accessible only by boat. It qualifies as the smallest church with its 51-inch by 81-inch floor. It has just enough room for the bride, groom, and a minister.
This is the smallest church in the world. It was built by Chandler Mason and his daughter Beth, and there have been some 6 weddings here. If you don't believe me that it's the smallest church in the world, then look it up in the Guinness Book of Records because it's in there.
The Cross Island Chapel is located on Shenandoah Road off Route 365, just north of Oneida Castle. To learn about the history of the city of Sherrill, we go back to its origins at the Oneida Community Mansion House. Currently, there is an exhibit detailing the link between the Oneida community and the formation of a city that embodied their ideals of living well and benefiting others.
Sherrill became a city in 1916, but it is a story that goes back to 1848, over 50 years before, when a group of Christians called the Oneida community, dedicated to living as one family, moved here. There were 200 or so of them, and they were dedicated to the proposition that they would counteract sin, which they believed was selfishness, by behaving selflessly in every way and by living to benefit others. Well, they turned themselves into a company called Oneida Community Limited in early 1881, and that company, by about 1900, had decided to admit its employees, they were mostly making silverware, tableware that became later Oneida Limited, that they would admit their employees as full economic partners and give them unheard of insurance and benefit, health benefits and so forth, and a share of the profit. Well, they also wanted to build a model company town, and so with the old Oneida community land, they laid out plots a little bit north of the Mansion House, the headquarters of the Oneida community, and they encouraged their employers to buy them below market value. They had a complicated bonus plan in place so that each family ending up with a house would then own it and make a little money. And the company laid out all the streets with sewage, electricity, with running water, with garbage, fire protection facilities, and a full range of educational and health benefits as well.
To learn more about the city of Sherrill, visit the Oneida Community Mansion House, open today from noon to 4 with a guided tour at 2 o'clock. There are also many great historical books, including a popular mystery novel, The Good Silver, by Sherrill native Matthew Dunn. When you visit the Mansion House, be sure to tour the grounds, including the beautiful gardens.
Gardening was very important to the Oneida community. It was part of their daily life. It was part of their creating their heaven on earth, their Garden of Eden. Today, the tradition continues because of the Sherrill Garden Club and because of residents of the Mansion House and volunteers. When you come to visit the Mansion House, be sure to take the little trek down the sidewalk to see this beautiful, beautiful garden.
You can once again enjoy dining at the Mansion House at the new Zabroso restaurant. Chef Ruben Lopez fuses Latin American and Spanish flavors with French influences.
When the residents came here to the dining room, they would first come in the door and take their napkins out of this napkin box, and then they'd sit down for lunch or dinner or whatever. You can come here today and still enjoy the ambiance and have things like eggs Benedict, eggs Florentine, mussels, pork loin, fantastic meals. They are open for dinner Wednesday through Saturday. You can come here today for brunch from 11 o'clock until 4 o'clock. And looking at this menu, I can't help but think that the meals back then were a little bit simpler.
Their lives may have been simpler, but the children of the Oneida community were encouraged to expand their knowledge. Many attended college and traveled the world, and often returned to share their skills with the community. Recently, the Oneida Community Mansion House conducted a tour of the area's architecture, designed by one of the community's descendants, Theodore Skinner. Skinner is credited with designing the first shopping center or strip mall.
This area right here is known as the Skinner Block, and this was created in 1926 by my grandfather, Theodore Skinner, who was a child of the Oneida community, born in 1872, one of about 100 children born into the Oneida community. He went to MIT. His father had gotten a civil engineering degree at Yale and then went to MIT, and my grandfather Theodore got his civil engineering and architecture degree from MIT. He decided to move back to his roots. He had worked in New York City for a while with a very famous architectural firm, McKim, Mead and White, but then moved back here in the early 1900s and started building a whole series of local houses, as well as churches, schools, what comes to be known as these community-associated clubs, which was one of the other many activities that was started by Oneida Limited.
Sherrill's Activity Center was designed by Skinner and is open to the public for bowling, basketball, billiards, and a bite to eat. And no perfect city can function without an effective Department of Public Works. We catch the guys during their lunch break from a busy day of springtime maintenance.
In their effort to create the perfect city, the community also created this activity center for its members and also for the residents of Sherrill, and it was designed by one of their very own, Theodore Skinner.
It's time for us to take a lunch break of our own. We head back to the Skinner Block to Ebenezer's. This cafe is no secret to the people of Sherrill. They have a bustling daily lunch crowd and recently expanded to accommodate them. They have afternoon teas from 2 to 4, and on Friday and Saturday nights, Chef Joel pulls out all the stops, creating fabulous dinner fare.
When you dine here at Ebenezer's, be sure to leave enough room for their desserts, their homemade desserts, including homemade bread pudding, homemade rice pudding, and try what I had, the homemade lemon meringue pie. When I first came here, I thought that Ebenezer's was named after one of my favorite literary characters, Ebenezer Scrooge, but that's not the case. The fact is, it comes from the owner, whose name is Evan. When he was a little boy, he pronounced his own name Eben, and then the family started referring to him as Little Ebenezer.
Tell me that it's mightier than the sword, it's sweet and subtle as a song of the wren. Well, if a drunk man's words are a sober man's mind, it's all the same to her unless it's written on that line. Everything fades away without my pen.
What goes better with ice cream than baseball? And right across the street is Noyes Park, named for the Oneida community's founder, John Humphrey Noyes. This park is also known for a famous batter who started his career as a pitcher.
I've said it before, but I have to say it again. One of the perks of being the host of this show is being able to revisit history and to go places and learn things that I never knew. That's true here in Sherrill. It was here at the beginning of his career that Babe Ruth, the Bambino, the Sultan of Swat, actually played baseball. He was here because of the very famous Egan brothers from Sherrill, in particular Ben Egan, because Ben Egan from Sherrill, New York, was the Bambino's catcher.
Your perfect city has baseball, but needs a golf course. Just behind the Mansion House is the Oneida Community Golf Club. It is one of America's oldest, and until recently was a private course for guests and employees of Oneida Limited. The public can now experience what a select few golfers have for over 100 years.
If you were to design the perfect city, it would have to include a beautiful golf course. While it does out here in Sherrill, this golf course was started by the Oneida community, and you can come out here still and play. It's a public golf course. It's been around for more than 100 years and has its fair share of celebrities, including Debbie Austin, who is Sherrill's very own, who went on to win 7 LPGA tournaments, and she played this very course.
Let's see what we can see. It's time for the Cooper Group's road trip. It's time for the